Now this forum is open to questions. I had disabled chat because chat keeps on popping up on the screen. I had disabled chat. Now I have turned on the chat, and I would like to see the questions emerging. We had more than 900 unique registrations for this event, and as usual, 1/3 actually are able to attend. Most of them go on YouTube Live. We also are live on YouTube. So we have almost 315 active attendees in this Zoom meeting. And I'm now looking at some of the questions that have come. I see one question coming from Ms. Manji Bhadra, and she's talking about, I think this question is directed to Google, that in the multilingual speech systems or ASRs, how would you factor the diversity and multilinguality of Indian population? Is the question. I think it's directed to Dan.
Sure. I didn't see the question fly by, but I will answer the question that you were repeating. And basically, the multilinguality, actually helps, I think, with the code switching, because historically, right, like you would have some speech, some audio recording, and it would go to one model. That model was built for Hindi, or it was built for Tamil, or it was built for Telugu, or something like that. And it was very hard to have multilinguality supported because your model couldn't really support multiple languages in one go. But now with these models that actually do contain data from multiple languages, training data from multiple languages, they're still like not great necessarily at dealing with it, but they are much more capable already of dealing with data coming in from different languages because they have observed data from different languages at training time, right? So, historically, you really needed to know what model the audio should go to, but now you can just send it to a model that has all the different languages in the model. It's still not perfect, right? Because it's not exactly the case that, for example, Hinglish is actually Hindi and English mixed together, right? Like you suddenly see like Hindi words, mixed together with English, like even at the subword level, right? So you might see like an English word take like a Hindi verb inflection or something. So it's not perfect, but I think it's a good step in the right direction for the languages that are included there. And I think there's always a lot more to be done. But even at the SLTU meeting in Delhi 2 years ago, there was a lot of excellent work presented on this topic. Columbia University is doing a lot of work in this space as well. And we just recently hired somebody from there actually who came to Columbia from India and is also working on it. So I think there's a lot happening in the space. And certainly it's easier when you have a multilingual model than when you have a lot of single monolingual models. So watch this space, I guess.
Thank you. I think I saw a question again for you, how to include Sanskrit. I don't think Sanskrit is there in your system, even I think in the translation or speech. So there was a question which just scrolled up that when do you plan to include Sanskrit?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, right? Like I mentioned, we've been working in the field of Indian language technology for quite a few years, and we're always working to add more languages. So Sanskrit, in fact, is supported today in Gboard, the keyboard on Android. So you can just type in the keyboard. It has a transliteration model, and it has a dedicated keyboard with a dictionary and everything. But we know, of course, that beyond keyboards, there's also a need for translation and speech technologies and so on. So I don't really have any specific dates for any individual language, like when that might happen. But, we are always working on adding more. And specifically for translation, we also have a Translate community platform where, people can help by providing some translation. So it basically works by showing some sentences and asking for people to help translate them. To help create some more data, but of course I know specifically for Sanskrit, there is a lot of work that's been going on in that space already in India. So it's also something I think where you can look at what's already been going on and learn from that. So I don't really have like a specific date for any language, but we are always working to add more. We just recently were able to add Odia to Google Translate just a few months ago, so that was exciting, and we are looking forward to seeing what more we can share with you when we have it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Looking at another question, which is directed to Khalid and Simi Chaudhary ji together. Do you see language technology as a means to encourage the non-standard usage of a language?
Oh, that's a very big question. We clearly know that in some countries where they have national academies that standardize or normalize the languages, including the spelling, it had an impact on the language. The way we write is standardized somehow, and so on. So if we think of language technologies as the the spelling, grammar checker, etc., then yes, it has an impact. Now, if you look at the data we are analyzing from Twitter, from Facebook, etc., it's really amazing to see how the young people using these tools are ready to invent words, spelling, etc. Dan mentioned the mobile activity and code switching. We have been working on Arabic from North Africa, where we have a lot of code switching. And then you see that the young generation is inventing a completely different language. There is no punctuation. There is no, in languages that have capital letters, very often you don't have any capital letter, etc. So yes, the technology has an impact, but I don't think that it's a negative impact that would bring some disaster to the language. It's enrichment, and languages are living bodies. They have been evolving over ages, and this will continue, and the language might have an impact on that as well.
Thank you, Khalid. That's certainly a difficult question, because on the one hand, every government, especially in India, we talk about creating standards, standards that languages kind of converge, and on the other hand, we allow technology where anybody can speak his diversity, explicit diversity. So there is certainly a contradiction, and it's very, very important in India context. Now, another question which comes to Dan, I think it's a statement, not really a question, but I think Sanskrit to Malayalam translation supported by Google Translate. I think what the person means, is it supported? Obviously not at this point.
Yeah, that's right. Today there is no support for Sanskrit yet in Google Translate, but there is support for Malayalam. You can translate into and out of it.
Yeah. So actually, for Microsoft, we were working on Sanskrit to Hindi machine translation, and we have almost completed Sanskrit to Hindi. The reverse is being done. So maybe we can try something similar here. Another question to you, Dan. Can you speak about professional opportunities in Google for Indian computational linguists? What kind of expertise are expected from them?
Oh, sure. That's a great question. Yeah, so, in general, in industry, whether it's Google or, any of the other, large companies or small companies, there is an increasing demand for computational linguists or linguists with a computational background. And the reason for this being, right, is once the core machine learning technology has been developed, right, so we know how to train a machine translation system, a lot of the work turns out to be linguistic work, right, where you need to make sure that the data is in the right format, and you need to have the right data in the right languages, and so on. So in general, what we look for when we hire linguists is, first of all, a thorough understanding of the linguistic situation, but then also, some technical skills like Python. It's great if you have some experience with Python, or, maybe you've trained some machine learning models with TensorFlow. These days, there are quite a few online courses available on NLP. You don't have to be an expert doing the latest and greatest research on machine learning, because there's lots of people doing that already. As a computational linguist, the value that you can add is really in having that combination of linguistic knowledge and computational knowledge. So I would say take some of the online NLP courses, definitely do some Python if you have the opportunity. Of course, going to a place like JNU or another university to do a master's in the field is also very helpful. But certainly there are online NLP courses. Stanford University has put some online. Graham Neubig has put a low resource language technology course online, which is really excellent, has a lot of information there. So I think in general, like make sure you have a solid understanding of the linguistics and also like technical knowledge, Python, NLP, play around with TensorFlow, and be, open to learning new things, because that's something that we all have to do in this field. It's something where nobody knows the answers to all the questions. So, you have to be open to learning new things as well.
Thank you, Dan. Another question from Hardik Joshi. Does Google support student level training online in the area of NLP and information retrieval?
Well, I don't know that like Google specifically, supports it. We do have some grants and research funding and so on that you can, if you just Google or search for like, Google academic grants and funding, there are certain programs that lots of work is funded through. But I think I would also definitely look at like Stanford Scores and Graham Neubig's course. They are excellent online courses. That you can just download videos for and watch and, follow them at your own pace. I think they're really exciting. There might be actually some similar courses in India. I don't know, if there's anything recent there. I know Graham Neubig just put his online because of the pandemic, and he basically decided to make his coursework available to everybody. I don't know if there's maybe something similar in India, but stuff like that is excellent, I think.
Another question from Nayantika Bharadwaj, directed to all the three speakers, Dan, Khalid, and Simiji. Thank you so much for your insightful talk today. I wanted to ask about how can one evolve itself within an industry. For example, I work with a startup called Panlingua. I have seen closely that despite our founders being very passionate and knowledgeable about their work, there is a struggle with both investments and innovations. What are the scenarios that a startup, which is already a startup, can move forward with? So basically looking for opportunities, how startup can grow into MSME or, so maybe Simiji, can you take this question? You have to unmute. Oh, okay, yeah.
No, this is a good question. And in fact, I was looking forward to specifying a little more on this. I would restrict my response here to the language technology domain, although in general, there are various platforms that have been created by the government of India for engagement and promotion of startups. That is either through the startup hub that we have in METI, Invest India, Startup India. There are various platforms across ministries, depending on the domain in which the startups are operational and want to pursue their growth trajectory. For the language technology domain, as I had emphasized earlier, we are looking for and developing very soon an ecosystem wherein we collaborate with the startups, make use of their innovations and bring them into the main fold by helping us also evolve in the domain. For that, there are several technology, innovation challenges that are conducted by the government. And if you want to submit to those challenges, apply there, so that there is a recognition of your solution that you have to offer to the specific problems that the government is currently focusing on. There are different ones done by the consortia institutions of the Natural Language Translation Mission pilot projects as well. You could look up at MyGov, which is a good platform which keeps on advertising about the innovation challenges. And of course, we are all accessible to you to approach individually as well. So we would look forward to working with whatever solutions we can design for our own country, for our own languages, in our own technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Simi Chaudhary. There is a question, I think, directed to perhaps all of you from Vijay Kumar to everyone. Can crowdsourcing of data be a good solution to build affordable data sets? Maybe Khalid, you can take this question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, this is a very up-to-date approach to data curation. I think it's very important to be careful about the copyright and the intellectual property of the owners of the data that you are crowdsourcing. If the idea is to constitute a large network of experts that can help with data annotation, data labeling, This is an approach that is widely used. And I know that a number of partners are working with different universities and different institutions in India to do that. So yes, this is a very good approach to data production and data curation.
Thank you, Khalid. One question which is from Ranjit Bharati. What are the scope of translation into local languages like Bhojpuri, Braj, etc., from these languages to English, actually? So far, we are working on major language to major language translation, both Google and Microsoft. So is there a possibility of looking at, minor languages like Bhojpuri, Braj, etc., from there to English or vice versa? Maybe Dan, you can answer this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this is an exciting area. I think this is where technologies like unsupervised machine translation can make a big difference. I mentioned it briefly, but where you don't need a parallel corpus. And the reason I think this is exciting is that there is a lot of literature in a lot of these local languages in India, right? Even beyond the 22 scheduled languages, there's often a very long historical literary tradition. I was reading about Dakani poetry the other day and Dakani literature, and there is literally a tradition that I think goes back hundreds of years, right? But there's not a lot of parallel data, and I think in cases like this, where you have similar languages without a lot of parallel data, something like unsupervised machine translation could be really helpful. I know there have been some efforts, and I want to say maybe at JNU, if I remember correctly, on actually building corpora of Bhojpuri and Braj Bhasa and so on, right? So I think those corpora would be a great starting point, coupled with some unsupervised machine translation. I'm not aware of a lot of research on it, like necessarily having been published yet, but I think it is something that in the next few years will become possible. Am I misremembering, or is there indeed a Bhojpuri corpus that you and your students created?
Here we have corpus created under the funding from TDIL, but that is to be given free to the research institutes, Indian research institutes. But now we are creating an ecosystem where this can be put up for sale. And as in government, there are some bottlenecks. We are trying to resolve those bottlenecks, and the data will be available. There's a huge corpora of 17 Indian languages parallel, and also tagged at the level of part of speech and chunked, both available. And they're from 18 domains actually. So it's a very diverse corpora that we have. One question I think is from Shagun Sinha to everyone. Any of you can answer it. In the era of open source data, we talk about open source data. How does a language technology researcher deal with the copyright issues in collecting data? Khalid, you perhaps partially answered that. So if the data is open source, I take data, then what about the copyright issues?
Yeah, well, this is a really critical, and we should pay careful attention to that. I mentioned in my talk very briefly the European project that we call European Language Resource Coordination, where by law, the European Union, but also the European countries, imposes to the public sector the obligation to make their resources available. This is not really about universities or research institutions. It's about the public administration. So you can imagine that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in India produces a lot of reports in English, Hindi, English, Marathi, and Kannada, and so on. It would be really important for the government of India to make sure that all these reports are either available free of charge and de facto, or on request. So any university that sends an email to someone at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in India should get all this multilingual report. Here in Europe, it also applies to the broadcasters. The broadcaster companies that are publicly funded are supposed to make their audio data available for research and development of commercial product. So this is one way to get rid of this copyright. Otherwise, and this is what we have been doing for the last 20, 30 years, is to negotiate with the right holders. This is really a painful process. You need to identify who are the right holders and negotiate a license with them. And very often this is doable because if we talk to the newspapers, for instance, they are not doing language technology themselves, they are doing news. And if we tell them tomorrow we will get you some technology from Google, Microsoft, Apple, and others about fake news identification or hate speech identification, etc., they are very happy to contribute. So the advice I give always is talk to the right holder and make sure that you explain the technology that you're working on or the research that you're conducting, and you will get what you want. In some countries, and this is also applicable in India, I checked very quickly, there is this legal doctrine that is called fair use or fair dealing, these two different legal concepts. I know that in India, to conduct research on some copyright data is allowed in very specific conditions. So if you talk to an expert in these legal matters in India, I'm sure they will tell you more about it. And in some cases, you don't have to ask for the permission because it's research, and research is allowed within the Indian regulations. But please check this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Khalid. There are a lot of other questions actually, but we are running short of time. So I would request the participants to please send your queries directly to our speakers. Well, some of the questions I see are related to whether you can offer internships, all those things, so you can certainly direct those questions to go to their websites. I would request the participants to do some homework, go to the website of Google and ELRA and see if there are opportunities. They normally advertise opportunities if they come around, for there are a lot of opportunities for language data creation, annotation, etc. for students of linguistics. So certainly there'll be some. So I'll like to now close because there's time.
May I make a statement, Jhasa?
Please, yeah.
This is just to reiterate, as a representative of the government of India, to reiterate it to all the participants here today, that the vision of the government of India is to bring to reality a Bahubhashiya next to every citizen of India, and in this way work towards one nation and create real unity in diversity. And I really call upon everyone to render all this support and cooperation and come on board as Team India in our endeavor towards this direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. We all support the Indian initiative by the government of India, and it's a huge initiative by the Ministry of IT, and also the PSA is taking a special interest in creating technologies now. Thank you so much. So to sum up now, we have, I'm very thankful to all the speakers who took their time off with a great, certainly as a great initiative on their part that they are giving their time for such interactions. And I'm very happy that our Vice Chancellor, despite his very, very busy and hectic schedule, was able to participate, and he was able to mention several initiatives that JNU is taking, like Incubation Center. We have started Atal Incubation Center, and one of our own companies actually that I'm advising is one of the applicants. And then he talked about starting new institutions like School of Engineering, Management, and Sanskrit and Indic Studies, and an ecosystem that is slowly developing in JNU where these things can be done in, with a broader participation. I thank Dan, who is obviously very, very busy because Google is working on so many languages. India is, of course, a very important area, but Google has so many languages to work on. And so Dan, thank you so much once again for coming to our webinar and talking about especially the initiatives that you have on Indian languages, machine translation, transliteration, Gboard, and the Dakshina data resource that you have created. Thank you so much once again. And Khalid, as always, you have been so kind and so nice. Whenever I ask you, you always respond with a lot of positivity. So thank you so much, for coming to this webinar and participating in it with a lot of data that you presented on ELRA, the organization which is already well known and slowly coming to be more popular in India, in the academic institutions of India. And you discussed about the ELRA catalog and the map, as is very important because every ELRIC participant has to declare resources that they have, which is a very good thing to do. And I remembered at every ELRIC conference, you present the ELRA map, the latest ELRA map and catalog. And also the Indian language resources done by you in partnership with primarily CDAC and other individuals in India. So certainly I would say there is a lot of initiative from you on the spoken languages data. And in India, it's a challenge to create spoken language technologies with a lot of, the multilinguality, code switching and code mixing, and also the non-standard usages that people are so fond of doing in India. And you also talked about the language technology for all event, which in Paris, I missed it because of my last minute engagements, and I had made all the plans, which was done under the IYIL UNESCO initiative. And you ended with a very famous quote, best data is more data. So I think we should look at that more closely in India. We should create more and more data and resources for languages which are less resourced, truly less resourced. My special thanks to Ms. Simi Chaudhary ji, the new director, head of the TDI program, for sparing time for our webinar. She missed our webinar in the Wilray event that we did under ELRIC. She was supposed to speak there too. And because of her engagements that time, so this time she honored my invitation. Thank you so much, ma'am. And you were able to participate with a very elaborate, information on government policies and plans. And this government is actually very, very committed towards offering content to Indians in Indian languages. Remember the e-governance plan earlier now has become the Digital India plan, which is much more elaborate, much more practical, and it's going to be feasible because we are doing a lot of pilot projects to also test ourselves. And I'm currently in some committees reviewing some of these pilot projects. And also you talked about the offering internet content in Indian language, which is not an easy task because most of the content on on internet actually is in English. 53% of content on internet is in English, and not more than 1% on Indian languages even today. But the good thing is that most of the new users who come to internet are demanding and using actually Indian languages. So 9 out of 10 new users are demanding Indian languages. So that's a good sign, and I'm sure government will be pressured to offer more such initiatives where people can actually use content for education, for health, for e-governance. All that is critical actually. And I would also like to point out another area is that the heritage computing. Heritage in India is unparalleled compared to any other country. Sanskrit is a very important language. So we have 6,000 years of continuous history. A lot of manuscripts are there. So there must be some initiative also to make sure our heritage doesn't get lost, doesn't perish. And you talked about evolving distributed model, which is welcome because I think our distributed model, bottom-up model is much more practical and feasible. And in that case, you talked about creating an ecosystem with startup companies and the academia in the universities. So thank you so much for bringing up so many insights from the government side. And I hope this will lead to a new ecosystem with the model that we have already with ELRA and LDC and our giants, Google and Microsoft, and emerging giants like Samsung, Amazon. All these will give us new insights in creating an ecosystem which is going to work for India, because India is known to be a place where things don't work. These standards don't work, technologies don't work. You have to test your technology to make it work in India. It's really, really tough. So I would really hope that all these lead to a viable and practical model in India where we all work together under one umbrella, and of course in a distributed fashion, and help build technologies for Indian languages. So thank you so much once again. And finally, I thank all the lovely participants. They registered in large numbers, approximately 900. And I saw 315 to 16 actually holding ground. Even now we have 295, holding ground. I don't imagine we could have done this in a physical seminar that normally we do in JNU. We have 100 or the most 200 participants in a big auditorium, but online participation is so large that we really have to thank Corona for giving us this opportunity. Though I sincerely hope that this phase lasts sooner. I know, and we are again alive again. So thank you so much, everyone who made this happen. I also have to thank JNU webinar, Dr. Saurav Sharma, who happily lent his support for Zoom. And Zoom is a very easy platform to actually do seminars on. And I also thank my research student, Devendra Kumar, for managing the waiting room and all. So thank you so much, everybody, once again, and I'll say goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much once again. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for the organization. Excellent workshop. Hope to see you all face-to-face soon, and have some serious work with the TDIL and the agencies. We enjoyed that in the past, and I hope that we will continue to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khalid.
Surely, Khalid. Thank you, and thank you, Dan, and thank you, Professor
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you, everyone.
Namaste.
Thank you, Dan. It's late for you, very late for you. Go have some sleep.
Yeah, thanks. See you.
Thank you. Bye.